Why are men not getting married in the year 2022? Let's take a listen to some of the individuals on TikTok and see if we can find out why that might be the case.
Okay, so you couldn't prove who the father was, and it makes so much sense because women were free, so they could have sex with whoever they wanted, and they wouldn't know they were pregnant until they just had a belly at like 5 or 6 months, and women weren't controlled. And it makes so much sense that in order to shift to a patriarchy, the focus was on women being virgins until they got married, because that is how they could control who was the father of that child, right? Like if a woman has never had sex, then she gets married, has a child with that man, we could essentially, the society could ensure that now things could get passed down from father to son. Maybe a small detail, but to me it just really highlights just like how insane our current society is. And I know we always say like, oh, it's always been that way, it's always been that way, but the more I'm reading about matriarchal societies, it's not always been that way, and that is why I'm on a pursuit to read as many of these books as I possibly can, because
Yeah, guys, how insane is it that men want to ensure the paternity of their child? Guys, in the year 2022, there is absolutely no reason for a man to get married. In fact, it is actually more detrimental for a man to get married. In fact, guys, I will take it a step further and say that paternity tests should be mandatory for any woman that is having a child. We have so many dudes out here who are married in long-term relationships, and they don't even know that the kid is not even biologically theirs. Yo, what is going on, guys? It is Taylor the Fiend back again with another response video. And on today's episode, guys, we are going to be taking a look at some TikToks here that perfectly show why men are not interested in getting married anymore. Now, there are, quite a few guys who are not interested in getting married, but there are also a lot of men who are not interested in relationships. And then there are even more men who are not interested in engaging with society as a whole, okay? Society has done a fantastic job at disincentivizing men to participate in it, and we're going to be taking a listen as to why that could possibly be the way that it is. So we're going to be kicking it off with this woman's video right here. And of course, guys, what better way to start a video than to have a chat about the patriarchy? Now, this woman is going to be telling us about a book that she recently got that apparently describes the existence of matriarchies and just, how much better they were and how insane our current quote-unquote system of the patriarchy actually is. So let's take a listen to this video clip right here.
I'm reading this book, When God Was a Woman, and it's essentially about what life was like before the patriarchy, and talks a lot about matriarchal societies. And there's a part I read last night that is blowing my damn mind, and I wanted to share it.
As far as I'm aware, there is no evidence of matriarchal societies that have existed for any extended period of time. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but you hear this argument from a lot of modern day womanists that say, matriarchies were a thing. As far as I know, they were literally non-existent, or they were unambiguous, they were ambiguous, so we weren't able to even tell if they even properly existed. But carry on with your book here, madam.
So before the patriarchy, things like property, inheritances were passed down from not father to son, but from mother to child. And the reason why is because they couldn't prove who the father was. And sorry about that, we're back. Okay, so you couldn't prove who the father was, and it makes so much sense because women were free, so they could have sex with whoever they wanted, and they wouldn't know they were pregnant until they just had a belly at like 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, guys, that just makes so much sense, right? Because under a matriarchy, obviously, you want to hand down from the mother to the mother's child without knowing who the father was. Right, so what fantastic logic. And we're going to be diving into some of the comments on this video right here, guys, in a minute. But what you'll notice, especially in modern day dating, okay, and why dudes in general are not interested in committing to women, is because you understand that a lot of these girls, they have multiple men that they're seeing at the same time. Like, they literally have rosters of men. This is what dating in 2022 looks like, guys. You have the dudes at the top of the dating market who, you know, a lot of the women select. Then you have the rest of the men who essentially get nothing. And then you have the women. So the women and the men at the top essentially have rosters of one another where they're seeing multiple people. And this is why dudes aren't interested in committing to you. If your dating strategy turns from, okay, I'm going to get the highest, you know, the best dude that I can possibly get and try and lock him down, to I'm just going to get with a whole bunch of dudes, then men are not incentivized to get with you either. Because the thing is, if a dude gets with you, he has a serious relationship, and he has a kid with you, what are the odds that the kid is actually his? And I've said this, guys, at the start of the video, okay, but a lot of guys are going around and they're in relationships with women, they're in marriages with women, and they have children with these women, and they don't even know that the child is not theirs, which is incredibly disgusting, guys, to me personally.
And women weren't controlled, and it makes so much sense that in order to shift to a patriarchy, the focus was on women being virgins until they got married, because that is how they could control who was the father of that child, right?
I love this word control, right? It's really interesting because the way she phrases it makes it sound like it's a very bad thing. You know, women were, you know, didn't go around getting with every dude up until marriage, and it's all about control, control, control. Okay, fine. Let me tell you something, guys. A lot of modern women will complain about the fact that men are not marrying them, will complain about the fact that men are not interested in relationships. But what a lot of these girls fail to realize is that relationships are a trade. There is no reason for a man to enter into a relationship with you if you are a 304. Okay, in fact, it is very dangerous for a man to do that because, one, he can lose all his assets in the process thanks to the modern court system. Number two, he can lose the kids as well. Number three, he doesn't even know if the kids are his. Number four, it's straight up embarrassing. And number five, any man who has self-respect is just not interested. And that's just the 5 reasons that I could come up with off the top of my head. But a lot of these girls, guys, they have done a fantastic job, okay? On one hand, they'll say that marriage is oppressive and the traditional idea is oppressive, and, you know, we don't want to, marriage is just a thing that benefits men, okay? But what has happened, guys, is that women have liberated themselves from marriage. Okay, you're liberated, you're free to do whatever you want. You can go out there, you can become a CEO, you can be a boss babe, you can be the provider. But the problem is, when it comes to things like marriage and what men want out of a relationship, men don't care if you're providers. Men don't care how much money is in your bank account. Men don't care how strong you are and how independent, quote unquote, you are. These are things that are not necessarily appealing to a guy. So when you come here and you say, I want to get married, I'm a boss babe, I'm a queen, and I'm 32 years of age and I have 2 children to do 2 different men, it's simply not going to cut it.
Right? Like, if a woman has never had sex, then she gets married, has a child with that man, we could essentially, the society could ensure that now things could get passed down from father to son.
I mean, the society could also ensure that the kid is just his, because that's a nice thing to know. It could also ensure the health of the relationship. Guys, there are studies that have shown that the more partners that individuals have before they enter into marital commitments, the higher, by a significant amount, the likelihood of that relationship is to fail. In other words, if a woman has a bunch of bodies and then she gets married, that marriage will essentially fail. Like, it will not last, because she's always going to be chalking him up to her past experiences. She's going to be thinking, oh, what if I went with Brad instead? She's oftentimes going to be keeping an incredible amount of orbiters, especially thanks to social media. And if you guys don't know what I mean by orbiters, basically I mean a lot of men that women will oftentimes keep in their back pocket for a rainy day, i.e. the end of their relationship. Okay, and this is something that I've covered on the channel so many times, guys, but dudes, imagine this, right? Imagine this from a man's perspective. You get married to a woman, you think that you're going to be happily forever after, and that's going to be it, right? That's what you've been sold. You're going to get into this relationship, you're going to get married, you're going to give it your all, you're going to have kids, and that's going to be it. But you come to find out that, I don't know, Instagram exists, and that a lot of these women will keep around their exes, they'll keep around quote-unquote guy friends, they'll basically keep backup plans, even though they're supposed to be entering into something that is forever. But thankfully, guys, thanks to the modern-day court system, women can just leave marriages whenever the hell they want and take men for a lot of their possessions and or their children. Let's keep going.
Maybe a small detail, but to me, it just really highlights just like how insane our current society is.
Yeah, guys, how insane is it Like, just think about that for 2 seconds. This woman thinks that it's an insane prospect that men want to actually know that their kids are theirs. Right, so guys, imagine this, right? If you're a dude probably watching this, it's likely that you don't have kids, but there are probably a few of you watching who do have kids. But, you know, for the dudes who don't have children, imagine for a moment that you have a child, okay, with a woman, and you think that it's yours, and for 10 years of your life, 18 years, you raise it till it's 18 years of age, okay, until it's an adult. You raise the kid until it's 18, and you come to find out that the kid wasn't even yours the whole time. It was just from some other guy who she was messing around with when she first started seeing you, or hell, even a fair amount into your relationship. Yeah, Lord forbid that men would like to avoid that situation. Isn't that, in her own words, guys, rather insane, apparently?
And I know we always say, like, oh, it's always been that way, it's always been that way. But the more I'm reading about matriarchal societies, it's not always been that way. And that is why I'm on a pursuit to read as many of these books as I possibly can, because...
Yeah, I love how it's like treated as though this is what education is. Okay, I'm going to read books that highlight to me how oppressed I am and how difficult women have it, and how the current society is just manufactured in such a way that makes it difficult for women to succeed. Women are allowed to go out here, guys. They are allowed to be CEOs. They're allowed to be politicians. In fact, I would argue that really what we're currently living in is basically a collapsing patriarchy. It's not even a patriarchy anymore, guys. There is nothing stopping women from obtaining positions of power. They are more than welcome to go out there and do that. They have fought for their boss babe queendom, and now that it's here, it's like, oh, no, we're still oppressed. Things are still difficult.
Because it's not always been that way, and we should learn that history. And there's a reason we're not learning that. I'm reading.
Yeah, guys, there's a reason that we're not learning that. But let's continue into today's next TikTok here, guys, because if you thought the insanity, to borrow the word, stopped right there, it absolutely does not. So here we have another TikTok clip, guys, and we're going to be talking about a cognitive bias that apparently men have, and obviously we are, we're not well off for it. So let's just take a listen to the womanist rant that is headed our way.
Did you know men have a cognitive bias which makes them perceive women to be taking up more space than they actually do? When women make up just 17% of a group, men will perceive it as being a 50-50 split. When women make up just 33% of a group, men see women as the overwhelming majority. And this isn't just a visual bias. Despite stereotypes that women speak more than men actually speak more than women. Also, when women are in the minority, they tend to speak even less. As whether when men are in the minority, they speak about the same amount. When women do speak up in a group where they're in the minority, they're more likely to be interrupted. Women have to make up 60 to 80% of a group before they can expect to speak an equal amount of time. But
okay, so let's talk about this for a second, guys. I love that this woman is just preaching straight facts to us here, quote unquote. Unfortunately for her, I did also pick up the article that she was mentioning here. So let's take a bit of a look at this if I can hit the right button. I think it's this one, yes. So let's take a look. The phenomenon that this woman is describing, saying that men, we're just ignorant, we don't seem to understand that women, even though they make up a lower percentage of a particular group, like, we as dudes apparently perceive there to be more women than there actually are. We're just incredibly rude, whatever the case may be. Apparently, according to this woman's article that she was referring to, the phenomenon isn't even male specific. In other words, this is a cognitive bias that women also have as well. So let's take a read here. In 2015, researchers asked almost 1,800 executives, both men and women, of large companies to estimate the percentage of women among CEOs of large companies greater than $500 million in revenue. The average male said that there would be 25 women. The average female said that there would be 21. And according to the study authors, the answer is 8. So both men and women tend to overestimate the amount of women in a particular field, even though, it's an incredibly small amount, apparently. So 8 to 25. Right, so this is something that's not even male specific, guys, but welcome to TikTok, guys, where apparently just men are bad and we have these false perceptions about women. It's not even that women have these exact same perceptions and, I don't know, we're all human beings or something like that.
But when women speak as often as men perceive that women have been speaking for the majority of the time. And this perception goes even further. Essayist Robert Lipsyte blamed young boys' lack of reading on the overwhelmingly female imprint in children's literature. But when they actually studied it, only 33% of lead characters are female, and if a character appears in a title, they are twice as likely to be male.
I love how we can take things like these, but we refuse to acknowledge that a lot of the male characters, for example, that are put in these stories are oftentimes bumbling idiots. So you have people like Homer Simpson, Peter Griffin. Okay, you have the male people in these shows are oftentimes evil and greedy. What comes to mind is people like Mr. Burns. Every evil villain is some like rich old dude. Okay, every single male protagonist these days in modern day movies is some guy who's incredibly timid, who can't get a single word out, who understands nothing about the world, and then some woman will come and sweep him off his feet, and then she'll lead and direct things and fight off all the bad guys. Like these new Spider-Man guys, like I can't even watch a lot of these new movies because the way that they frame the male protagonists in them, like, yeah, they'll have a male protagonist, but they'll turn him into some sort of like walking idiot who doesn't understand the world, who won't get a single sentence out. And then he'll be introduced to a female character who's a lot more worldly. Like I think it's Cyberpunk, right? The one on Netflix. Okay, you had the dude who was raised by a single mother, doing it tough, obviously, guys. Who got beaten up a lot, and then he came across a woman who just absolutely ran him for a clown, was emotionally distant the whole time. He compromised his self-respect to chase her. It was just absolutely ridiculous, guys. But I'm getting a little bit off track here. But guys, let's continue on to the next TikTok here, because I'm pretty sure I have another one of pulled up here, obviously ranting about the patriarchy once again. You ever notice, guys, how like we're talking about marriage here, okay, and you'll have women complain about the fact that men don't commit to them. Like, that's literally one of the largest complaints that a lot of modern women have. They'll say things like, why are all men a-holes? Okay, like why do all guys seem emotionally distant? They're emotionally immature, which is basically just code for why don't men commit to me. Meanwhile, we have rants all over the internet where they're talking about the quote-unquote patriarchy. Like, no guy wants to be with a woman who has a negative view of men by default to begin with. It's absolutely amazing stuff. Let's go.
Patriarchy shames women for being sexual, and capitalism sexualizes women. And the fact that capitalism is also operated by patriarchy tells us something really important. Women's sexuality is viewed as a resource, a profitable one. So patriarchy shames women for owning it because men want to be the ones that capitalize on it. Patriarchy shames women.
In other words, guys, don't shame us when we want to go out there and we want to work on the OF. Okay, we want to have OnlyFans accounts. You're not allowed to shame us, guys, or else you're part of the capitalist patriarchal society. And I will say this, okay, if a girl wants to go out there, she wants to create an OF account, she wants to sell herself to simps, to dudes who are going to pay for that, hey, go for it. Okay, but the thing that these girls don't seem to understand is that there is a consequence to that. Okay, so if you want to go out there and you want to sell your body on the internet, if you want to make that particular decision, nobody's here to stop you. You are strong, you are empowered, you're a womanist, okay? And if any man doesn't want you, he's obviously scared. No, I'm kidding. So you can do these things, but the problem becomes when you start talking to men about commitment, right? So for example, let's just say you want to be a wife, but at the same time, you want to have an OF account, or you want to have an OF account, and then you want to stop it, and then you want to become a wife. This is not how things are supposed to be, guys, right? Because what you'll come across is you'll come across men saying, hey, listen, I don't want to wife up a girl who has, or at least has had, an OF account. Right? And you can say, oh, men are shaming us, you're part of the patriarchy, you're part of the capitalist system. That's very well and cool, but men are not interested in wiping up 304s. And this comes back to the idea that you can't ensure the paternity of the child. You can't ensure the fact that the woman is not going to commit infidelity. Like, guys, let me put it to you this way, okay? If a girl is selling pictures of her body online and she's doing all this spicy work, common sense would tell you that you're at a higher likelihood of getting cheated on. There's a higher likelihood of infidelity. There's a higher likelihood of her keeping around men who are, interested in her, who are backburner guys. There's a higher chance of the relationship ending because she feels as though she can get a better option because she receives so much male attention that she asks for, by the way. Like, there are so many problems associated with this, guys, but, don't shame women for their decisions, Like, allow them to go out there, allow them to make these terrible decisions, but at the same time, they want to be wives at the end of it. Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. But guys, let's continue into today's Reddit stories, and I have a couple of really disgusting ones to pull up here for you guys. And after this video, I'm going to head to bed, man. I'm stumbling over my words here. But we have a Reddit story, and this is quite a disgusting one, and this paints a really good picture as to why a lot of dudes are not interested in getting married. So let's take a read of this. This is titled, and again, these are posted very recently, so guys, oftentimes when I cover these things, I'm not trying to pull up stories that are incredibly old. Yes, I might pull up a couple that are old just so that they fit what we're talking about, but a lot of the times, guys, when I cover Reddit stories and when I cover these things, they are incredibly recent. Okay, you can literally go onto Reddit subreddits where you can look at relationship advice, dating over particular age brackets, and you will find them littered with things like this. So this is a question that is asked by a woman 11 hours ago on relationship advice, and she says, have you ever broken up with someone you still loved a lot? I, a 28-year-old female, am in a 3-year relationship with my boyfriend who is 28 years old. We have been going through some serious problems. I think we are not compatible in multiple areas. I wonder what this means, guys. What do you think this means? Like, if we were able to hear what the man had to say and we were able to hear what the woman had to say, I would be interested as to what this actually means. Does this mean that he doesn't like you going out clubbing? Okay, I'd be very interested to see what this meant, but let's keep going. Our problems did start with something that was out of our control, but now I am thinking that the problems would have surfaced anyways, just later. I read stories of people who broke up with someone they still loved. They said that they've been lonely ever since, missing their ex and really regretting the decision. Meanwhile, the ex moved on. I am so scared. I feel like I'll be signing on for a life that I wouldn't choose for myself if I stay. On the other hand, I'm scared I will be making a permanent decision on temporary problems, and I'll be missing out on a lovely future with the person that means the world to me. I really need some perspective. Too long didn't read. Have you ever ended a relationship with someone that you deeply love, and how did that work out for you? Guys, this is why when we talk about you know, girls being able to just leave marriages through quote-unquote irreconcilable differences, it's such a problem. Because a lot of the times what will happen is people will look at these situations and say, hey, I love this person a lot, right? I really love them, but at the same time, I want to get a divorce because I just don't feel like we are compatible. Maybe you should have found out if you were compatible at the start rather than 3 years into your relationship, or rather than, I don't know, when you're married. Okay, and this is the thing that a lot of guys come to realize the hard way. Is that girls will fall out of love very quickly compared to men. Like, girls get far more bored far quicker than men do, and they also have an incredible amount of options to choose from when they leave said relationships. So when these relationships end, guys, typically what it means is that the girl wants to hold on to this guy. She sees a future with him. He has potential, but at the same time, there are other options, and she doesn't want to feel like she's missing out. She also doesn't want to leave this guy because she doesn't want to feel as though she's missing out with him in case he gets any better when she leaves. Basically, guys, this woman is having the dilemma here of what guy does she go with? Does she go with the guys who are out there who are maybe going to give her more, or does she stay with the guy who she quote unquote loves a lot? And this is what, like, when you start to talk about the word love and you start to throw around the word love and then you try and square it up to these stories, guys, which is, by the way, stories that every man will go through to some degree, love doesn't really cut it here. Because what this woman is talking about is, if she loved the dude, right? If you actually love the man, what would happen is she would stay with the guy through thick and thin. But that's not what happens. She's basically weighing up her options here, and she's seeing if she can leave the relationship for something better, and she's scared. Look at this. I am so scared. Isn't that interesting? What an interesting choice of words. But let's continue to see if any of the other people in the comments have broken up with someone they still really loved a lot. I loved the person I left around your age after a 3-year relationship. So this person's in the same situation, and you know, they left the person. The next person was my person, and we've spent together for 15 years. There is no comparison to the loves. One is a growth spurt, the other is my life. Don't waste time when you know it's wrong. I'm going to hazard a guess here and say that this is another woman. The original poster says, thank you, this really helps. Global here, the next individual says, I broke up with someone that I loved dearly for over 3 years. He was amazing, kind, lovely. a lovely guy who showed me every day that he appreciated me, treated me well, and was supportive. However, our goals were not aligned. He wanted to settle down, he wanted to get married, have kids, while I wanted to focus on my career, travel the world, and figure out what I truly wanted. In other words, guys, I wanted to go be a boss babe, and I wanted to get with other random dudes and see what other random dudes were out there. Even though the guy was amazing, he was kind, she loved him dearly, she left because she prioritized her job and going and seeing other random dudes and seeing if they were better over the men that she loved, quote unquote. You see how irrelevant the word love is here in these situations, guys? Like, when I see this word here, it literally doesn't mean anything to me when I read it. I broke up with someone that I loved dearly for over 3 years. So did you really love them? Right? Because if you really loved them, I don't think you would prioritize, figuring out what you truly want over this individual. I don't know, guys. Maybe that's me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I just see a lot of girls who apparently love the dude, but they leave to go travel and find themselves, quote unquote, which is basically just term for I want to date other dudes and I want to see what other options are out there for me, even though I love this guy. I met my now husband, married 1 month, a few years later, and I wouldn't have been ready without taking the plunge into the unknown. I knew he was the one early on. You can move on from someone you love and find a person you can love in the future. Is it, guys, imagine, right? Men don't really have this option. If you're like a dude, unless you're a man who's like incredibly attractive, you typically don't have these kind of options. Okay, this is something where it's like, oh, I threw away 1 million. This is like rich people, right? This is like a rich dude coming along and saying, listen, I bought this car and then I wanted to throw it away. I lost all my money on it, but I'm going to go get another one. I'm just going to burn money, but that's okay. I always have millions more in the bank. It doesn't matter that I have a guy who I love, who appreciates me, who treats me well, who's supportive and wanted to have a future and a family with me. Screw that. I want to just go out there and I want to just gamble and see if there's anything better out there. That's kind of like a rich person coming along, right? And just like throwing away money. It's like, oh, I got another 3 million. Can you guys imagine being in that position, right? Where you could just throw away options. And this is why a lot of women don't value men. Because they can just go on Tinder, they can go on Bumble, they can go on Hinge, they can go out into broader society, and they can just have dudes hit on them, and before you know it, just have another relationship lined up and ready to go. And they wonder why men don't invest into these quote-unquote relationships. This woman right here is literally highlighting a relationship. There's multiple of these women in these threads, in this particular thread, excuse me, are highlighting the fact that they've been in relationships with men for years and then just decided to leave because they felt like it. And what, men are supposed to invest into this with a ring and with a marriage contract? Yeah, no thank you. But guys, we are going to be leaving today's episode there. Don't forget to subscribe to our other content creators, Hadan from Peace of Mind and Detective Warg. Their channels will be linked in the video description as always. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and your comments. Make sure that you come and join us over on Locals. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel, we have exclusive videos over there, a little bit shorter, where we cover Reddit stories and we cover other topics that YouTube really doesn't like us talking about. So make sure that you come and join us. There's also free content, so there's no need to become a supporter. Locals is totally free to join, but there is also exclusive content for supporters. But otherwise, guys, we're going to be leaving it there. Make sure that you take care of yourselves, and I'll be seeing you all in the next episode. Peace.